This is part 2 of Daf Mem Zayin, Amud Beis. The Mishnah says, Noisten Keli Tachas Haner Lekabel Nitzoitzes. You're allowed to put a utensil under a lamp to catch falling sparks. But don't put water in that utensil because that's going to cause extinguishing, and the Gemara will explain. The Gemara first asks a simple question: if you're catching sparks, so the utensil is now going to be muktzah because it's catching a davar muktzah, so you won't be able to move the keli. And as we said before, being mavatal a keli, making a keli unmovable, is aser. Rashi originally before said that it was because bainet, as if you're cementing it in place. Amr Avuna B'Reid of Yeshua, a simple answer. Nitzoitzes ein b'mamish. Sparks have no lasting capacity, so therefore the spark goes out, and then your keli can be moved. So you're not mevatel the keli me'echani. Nothing happens. Don't put water into the utensil, because then you're extinguishing. So before we go forward, there's a dispute later on in Daf Kuf Chav. If there's a fire, so the Rabbanan said that you can take containers with water and place them around the area of the fire. So when the fire gets the container breaks and the water extinguishes the fire, and you're safe. But Rabbi Yossi says you're not allowed to, because if it's a new clay utensil, so the heat would crack the clay utensil and would cause the fire to go out, and that's called gram kibui. You're causing extinguishing, and Rabbi Yossi prohibits causing extinguishing, whereas the Tanakama allows to cause extinguishing. So there's a dispute whether gram kibui, causing something to be extinguished, is mutar or aser. So the Gemara proposes lema tanan stama ke Rabbi Yossi damar gairim lekibui aser. Our Mishnah prohibits you putting a keli with water under a lamp. Seemingly, why? Because it's going to cause putting the keli with the water under is going to cause the spark, when it falls in, to be extinguished. So it seems like gram kibui is aser, which is like Rabbi Yossi, who says gram kibui is aser. The Gemara asks, "V'tizber, is this logical?" Eimer d'amar Rabbi Yossi b'Shabbos. Rabbi Yossi said that you weren't allowed to put those clay containers of water around the fire on Shabbos, because gram kibui, causing it to be extinguished on Shabbos, is aser. But Be'erev Shabbos miyomar. But he never prohibited you putting the keli do gram kibui, to cause something to be extinguished, when what you did was Erev Shabbos. V'chitem, and if you'll tell me hachanami, maybe our Mishnah also is talking about the Shabbos, that you're not allowed to put the keli with the water under the ner on Shabbos. Tanya, the Brisa says, Noisten keli tachas haner lekabel nitzoitzes b'Shabbos, vein tzorach lamer b'erev Shabbos. You're allowed to put a container, a utensil, under the lamp to catch sparks, whether you're putting it under on Shabbos or Erev Shabbos, because you're not really doing anything. The spark will go in, the spark goes out by itself, and the container, the keli, is movable. But v'lo yiten l'toichai mayim epnei shu mechaba ne'erev Shabbos ve'in tzorach lamer b'Shabbos. But you can't take a container of water to put it under the lamp on Shabbos, and you can't even do it on Erev Shabbos either. So now the question is, why are we so machmir? Elam Ravashi, so Ravashi is afilatayim Rabbanan. Even the Rabbanan that allow gram kibui would agree here that it's prohibited. Kashani hacham etneshem mekarev es kibuyai. Here, because you are making the extinguishing faster. Let me explain. When the Rabbanan allowed gram kibui, there was a fire going, and you took a container or clay containers of water. When the heat got to the container burst, and the water put it out. So you caused the extinguishing, and that's fine. But here, what would be if, as the spark is falling, you would take a container of water and put it and intercept the spark? In that case, had the spark fallen without your intervention, without your interception, it could have lasted maybe 2 seconds. Now that you're putting the keli of water under it, so now you're causing the spark to go out immediately. That's considered that not causing it to go out, that's considered your extinguishing. You have brought the water to the falling spark. Therefore, on Shabbos, if you were to do that, there's an Isser Deraisa. So therefore, the Chachamim prohibited you to put a keli with water under a lamp that's burning, not only on Shabbos but even on Friday also, because I'm afraid if you'll do it on Friday, you might come to do it on Shabbos, and if you do it on Shabbos, if you actually intercept the falling spark, you'll be doing an Isser Deraisa. Now, normally we don't make Zeiris of you're not allowed to do something on Friday because you might come to do it on Shabbos. So why here would we be so machmer? The answer is because people know what extinguishing looks like. You take a fire extinguisher, you extinguish a fire. People don't think that when you catch a falling spark into a container of water that you bring there, that's called extinguishing. It's extinguishing, it would have gone out anyway, and I didn't pour the water on the fire came to my bowl of water. So people will come up with many excuses why they don't think it's extinguishing. So therefore, I'm so afraid that people will do it, that I even prohibited putting a keli with water under a burning lamp on Friday, because of Gzer you might do it on Shabbos, and on Shabbos, if you actually intercept the falling spark with your container of water, it would be Nisser Deraisa. We learned previously that on Friday you're not allowed to insulate your food in something which increases heat. You can insulate with something that preserves the heat, but you can't insulate with something that increases heat. And the reason for that was because if you insulate your food with something that increases heat, you might insulate it with ash and coals. And if you insulate with ash and coals, then on Friday night you might come to stir them. So the Gemara is talking about practical things. What objects are considered insulation that only retain heat, which is mutter, and what objects increase heat and they're usr? So ein taimnin, you're not allowed to insulate loy begefes, not with olive pulp, v'loy bezevel or manure, v'loy bemelach, v'loy besid, neither with salt or plaster, v'lo bechol, bein lachan, bein yevation, or wet or dry sand, v'loy beteven, v'loy bezogim, v'loy bemuchen, nor straw, nor pulp of grapes, nor soft pieces of wool or cotton, v'loy basavim, nor grass, bizman shein lachem, only when they're moist. But I will time them when they're dry. These last 4 items, straw, pulp from grapes, and soft wool or grasses, if they're dry, don't add heat, they only preserve heat, and that's okay. So the Gemara wants to know, when you considered the pulp of olive something which increases heat, gefesh shel zeisim tanan, so that's only olive pulp. Avol deshumshim and shaper dami. What about sesame pulp? That's okay. Or perhaps the shumshim and tanan. Maybe the Mishnah really prohibits sesame pulp also, and v'kolshken is certainly the zeisim, because olive pulp can even increase heat a little more. So the Gemara knows, or assume knowledge, that olive pulp will increase heat a little bit more than sesame pulp. The question is, when the Mishnah prohibited olive pulp, is it only olive pulp but sesame pulp is okay? Or the Mishnah prohibits sesame pulp and certainly olive pulp? Tashama, the Gemara tries to bring a proof. Domer Reb Zeira Mishum Chad Be Reb Yanai. Reb Zeira said in the name of one of the Rabbanim in Reb Yanai's Besmedrash, Kupa Shetaman Ba. If you have a box that you put a pot into this box and you insulated it with something which maintains heat, which is perfectly okay. Osir lanicha al gefesh al zeisim. You're not allowed to put it upon some pulp of olives. So you see, it's already insulated with something which is mutter, but you're not allowed to put it on top of olive pulp. So seemingly the prohibition is olive pulp. Shma min shel zeisim tanan. So you see that olive pulp is something I'm concerned about, and not sesame pulp. Gemara says no. Really, I could say to you that when you're going to insulate and cover your food completely, the shumshim and nami aser, it would be aser to insulate it completely, even in sesame pulp. But l'inyan asuki havla, if you're only putting it on top of if you have insulated it with something which was mutter, something which doesn't increase heat, you're just putting it on top of something that increases heat. So asuki havla, for the heat to go up, the zeisim maski havla, olive pulp can make heat go up, and that would be prohibited. The shumshimen lemaski havla, sesame seed won't make the heat go up. But if you're going to insulate your entire pot with sesame pulp, it could be that too would be prohibited. So the Gemara at this point has not come to a conclusion whether insulating completely in sesame pulp is prohibited or allowed. Be well. For Shalema to those who need. Please be careful. Maintain vigilance. Stay healthy for those that are healthy. And Mir Hashem, we should be able to see each other in person soon.